Hi, I'm Alexis, and this is my guide to the Dragonflight Mega Dungeon Dawn of the Infinite. Before we start, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. It'll help my channel grow and I'll be able to put out more content more often. Now, on to the dungeon. This dungeon has a total of 8 bosses. All bosses have a chance to drop level 437 gear at Mythic 0, and the last boss has a chance of dropping Reigns of the Quantum Cursor, which can transform into one of these random mounts from the past. The first boss is Chronikar. During the fight, Chronikar does a sand stomp, manifesting withering sand pools around random players. Go to the sides, as these will leave a sand pool on the floor, which slows players' speed and haste and inflicts arcane damage every 2 seconds. The sand pools remain there for the whole fight, so be sure to stack them up as much as you can and avoid placing them in the middle. 2 players will later get 2 larger circles, where the boss will do Eon Shatter, leaping into the location of the circles one by one, leaping into the highlighted circle first. Step out of the circle before he leaps to avoid damage. When he lands, Eon fragments will fly out, which will explode if you get hit by any of these, so avoid them. The boss stomp will also leave Eon residue, which looks like a smaller circle on the floor. This must be soaked, because it does damage to all players when it explodes. Tank mechanics: the boss can strike the tank with Chrono Shear, which knocks back and damages the target, and applies Sheared Lifespan, which increases damage taken by 200%. Prepare defensives, and healers watch out. Next we have Manifested Timeways. During the whole fight, the platform will be split into 4 quadrants. The lighter area does arcane damage every second and increases movement speed by 30%, whereas the darker area does arcane damage every 3 seconds and reduces damage taken by 20%. Keep these in mind for the next mechanics to position yourself appropriately. During the fight, the boss puts a debuff on players, which does arcane damage and can either be dispelled or falls off on its own after 8 seconds. If it's removed in the light area, it will cause an explosion, causing damage to nearby players. If it's removed in the dark area, the ripple will slowly grow on the platform, and crossing over its sides will cause damage. So try to cross over when on the dark zone to get 20% less damage. It's up to you where you drop the debuff, but I recommend instantly dispelling one in the light area while everyone else is standing in the dark zone to get it out of the way and take less overall damage, and let the second one drop in the dark zone to make it more manageable. During the fight, fragments of time are shot out of the boss, which travel slower in the dark area and faster in the light area. Be sure to avoid being hit by these. Unwind is the boss frontal, which looks like a brown cloudy ray. Move out of it. The tank should be in the dark area to get the reduced damage debuff, and the boss can also hit its current target with Radiant if the target is not within melee range, causing massive damage and increasing by 15% with each cast. So don't steal aggro from the tanks, and tanks stay in range. Next boss is Blight of Galakrond. There will be green swirlies on the floor throughout the fight. Avoid these. The boss will also leave big green puddles around the floor area, which cause damage when you step in them, so avoid moving the boss around too much. The main ability in this fight is Corrosive Infusion, a nature damage debuff spread over 12 seconds, which is cast on a random player, and when it expires, you'll become mind controlled for 20 seconds, and will start attacking your teammates instead of the boss. Corrosion can be transferred to other players. Keep this in mind. Blight Reclamation is a frontal that deals damage to players in front of it, but can also remove the corrosion debuff. So if players get the corrosion debuff, transfer this onto the tank, who can remove it when absorbing the frontal, and therefore everyone avoids getting mind controlled. At 80% health and 50% health, the boss will transfer into a new host with new abilities. Keep in mind that all hosts will cast Corrosive Infusion and the Blight Reclamation frontal. Host number 1 is Anzan. He can now cast Necrotic Winds, which is a bunch of tornadoes flying out of the boss. Avoid these. At 50%, the boss will split into 2 oozes, and both oozes will take on their new hosts. Host number 2 is Loskeleth, who casts Necrofrost on a random player, freezing them in place. And host number 3 is Dazak. His new abilities include Noxious Ejection, this is nature damage shot at players, just heal through, and Incinerating Blight Breath, which is a fiery frontal, just stay out of the way. Next we have Iridikron the Stonescaled. Random players get targeted with Extinction Blast, which will one-shot any player. Stand in Chromie's protection shield to reduce the damage taken and you'll survive. Stonecracker Barrage is a boss ability cast on Chromie. Everyone needs to soak this to help spread out the damage and keep Chromie alive. This hits Chromie 3 times, so don't run out before the third one. Throw some heals at Chromie to keep her safe. Earth Surge is an absorb shield on the boss. While this shield is active, it will pulse nature damage to all players, increasing damage taken by 25% for 7 seconds, which stacks, and he'll pulse out rendering earth spikes. Avoid these and break the shield fast. Pulverizing Exhalation is the boss frontal, just run out. Cataclysmic Obliteration. This is damage inflicted on all players. Go into Chromie's Timeline Transcendence, which protects you from this damage and also increases the damage done, haste, and cooldown rates by 100%. Tanks need to also watch out for Crushing Onslaught, caused by successful melee attacks that increase damage taken by 50% for 3 seconds, which can also stack. The boss needs to be down to 84% to be defeated. The next boss is Tyr, the Infinite Keeper. This is a relatively easy boss with straightforward mechanics. 2 players will get Spark of Tyr, which looks like this gold circle and causes arcane damage every 2 seconds to players within 8 yards, so move away from others when you get this. When it expires or when it's dispelled, it will cause arcane damage to all players, so dispel them one by one to give healers a chance to top up everyone. Tyr smashes the ground with Dividing Strike, causing damage split evenly between players within 10 yards and leaves behind concentrated ground, which also causes damage. If Dividing Strike fails to hit at least 2 players, Tyr will gain Titanic Empowerment, which will increase all damage done by 33%, and this effect stacks, so be sure to soak this attack. Infinite Annihilation is when Tyr targets a random player and casts a frontal, so be sure not to stand there. Titanic Blow is the tank mechanic that knocks back players in a cone in front of him. And the last ability is Siphon Oathstone. When Tyr gets to 0 energy, he'll shield himself with Radiant Barrier. During this phase, temporal essences will spawn and travel slowly to Tyr, which will increase his absorption of the Radiant Barrier. Players must collect as many as they can to stop them from reaching Tyr, and will instead increase the player's speed and haste, which can stack up to 5 times. Before heading to the next boss, there's a fun little area where you have to go through this room without being hit by the orbs. When one player manages to get through, he can open a portal for the rest of the players to take. This is gonna be so much fun on Mythic Plus. The next boss is Morchie, Chromie's alter ego. This cheeky gnome's abilities include Sandblast. This is the frontal that deals damage to all players in front of her, so avoid this. More problems. For this mechanic, Morchie will summon alternate versions of herself and you have to find where she is. Be aware that some versions look exactly like her but have something extra, like these bunny ears. Find Morchie quick and don't stand in front of her, cause she will transform into a dragon after casting Dragon Breath, doing frontal damage to all players in front of her, and players hit with the frontal will continue to be hit by nature damage every second for 7 seconds. Time Traps. These are gold swirlies on the ground. Running through them will root you in place for 30 seconds. You'll need these traps with the next mechanic. Familiar Faces. Minions from Morchie's past will spawn and fixate on each player, damaging them. Players need to run these minions through the traps to make them disappear. But this will also make the traps explode, damaging players within 100 yards, so use some defensives and healers be on the alert. Something funny to note, if a minion manages to defeat you, he will do a fun dance on your corpse. How very rude. Next we have the Time Lost Battlefield. where you have to defeat Anduin Lothar. Again, the mechanics for this boss are quite straightforward. His abilities are Shockwave. Lothar slams his sword on the ground, inflicting frontal damage. Just move away. Mortal Strikes. This is the tank ability which applies mortal wounds, reducing healing received by 75% for 5 seconds. For the Alliance, will cause 3 of the roaming NPCs to attack players. Just nuke these down. And Blade Storm. He'll do a whirlwind in the direction of a random player. Just move out of the way. And finally, the last boss, Chrono-Lord Deios. The boss mechanics are Infinity Orb. 2 orbs slowly fall to the ground and blast Infinity Nova. Arcane damage to all players and increasing the damage taken from Infinity Nova by 300% for 4 seconds. Players standing underneath an orb will make them fall down slower, so one player should stand under one orb to make the orbs explode one by one and staggering the damage. Temporal Breath is the boss frontal, stay out of the way. And Infinite Keepers will spawn from time to time, just nuke these down fast as they will summon additional adds. After summoning 4 Infinite Keepers, Chrono will fly up. From this point on, Chrono will start casting Infinite Corruption, leaving brown puddles in the place where players are standing. Just run out. Once all adds are down and all portals are closed, the boss will come back down. When Chrono reaches 8% health, Proto-Dragon allies will land and free Nosdormu and help battle the boss. And grats! You've completed the Mega Dungeon and hopefully you'll get the Reigns of the Quantum Cursor. If you completed this dungeon before the release of the next raid tier, you'll also get the Defender of the Timeways achievements and a new title. I hope you found this video useful, and I'd appreciate it if you leave a like and subscribe. I also stream on Twitch, so be sure to give me a follow to catch some live streams. Good luck, and thank you for watching.